many will die. The significance of Viserys' intentions died with him.
Good. To war, then.
This war will not be won with dragons alone, but with dragons flying behind armies of men. You feel what I've begun?
Recording. Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
This is like you're like a 2-year-old who's about to go to sleep and just has this burst of energy.
I'm so tired. I might just start crying next.
Weird.
All right. What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the For Your Consideration podcast. My name is Tyron D. Walker.
Don't forget a certain letter of the alphabet.
If he wanted to say it, he would have said it. Obviously, he's not comfortable saying it anymore, so you can just leave it alone.
Well, you know.
I didn't say it either. I just said, remember the alphabet. That's all. Fourth letter.
Sure. We'll go with it.
I'm so happy you can do math.
I mean, we're kind of like, it's 9, it's almost damn near 10 o'clock. We're recording this on a Tuesday because of life and situations happening. I'm having all these technical issues. Tamika's, I'm sure she's tired. We're all tired, but we won't push through it because we love you guys. And
yes, but I have a 2-year-old.
Don't forget that.
Don't forget the 2-year-old.
Can't forget the 2-year-old.
That's the new one. That's what I'm going to do now. Don't forget the 2-year-old. Anyway,
but yeah, gotta hold it down for our 10 fans out there.
Hey man,
listen to us
our
religiously.
YouTube is not that bad actually. I don't know if you.
Oh really?
It out. Yeah.
I haven't. I looked at it like last week, but
it's not.
I try not to look at it religiously, because it's not about the numbers. It's
Yeah,
for
that's
the
true.
love.
It's not. It's about the 10 fans that really follow us.
I also like lost my like notes as well. I don't know where the hell they are. They're somewhere.
Just having a day.
So I know, man. We're just gonna wing the hell out of this, man. We're gonna wing the hell out of this.
We'll be back to it next week, guys.
I know.
And back in regular form next week.
I hope so.
Yeah, recording on a Tuesday. I had a whole joke about recording on a Tuesday. I was gonna sing that "I Love Making Them" song. Okay.
Don't.
I love what song?
I love making them.
Ain't it Mackinnon?
No, that's what it is. I thought it was "I love making them." Doesn't that makes more sense?
It is
though.
making them.
Well, this is a fun conversation.
I had the club going up on it. All right. Anyways, I also found it interesting that we were talking last week about how this show doesn't have that much sex in it, and then we get that one scene where you talk about sloppy jalopy.
That was just all in your face.
It really was. I was actually surprised. Like, can you show this?
I know.
It's like too much.
I know, right? Like it kind of came out of nowhere. Like I wasn't expecting that. Like
it really did come out of nowhere. Like everything else was kind of expected, but that was just right. I'm like, oh, no. I mean, I even had to comment on. I'm like, she can't even get it in her mouth. Like that's
wow,
quite large.
Well, that's how you know it was prosthetic.
You knew it was prosthetic, but more importantly, this is how you know this show is gonna go off the rails when Tamika starts making comments like
it was right in your face. I couldn't not comment on it.
Yeah, it's in your face. You got to make a comment on it, I guess.
I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know I was going to go into a porno when I turned on the show.
Essentially, and that's essentially what that scene. At least the first 30 seconds of that scene.
Yeah. So there we go.
It is ironic. We talked about that last week.
I know, this show is really tame compared to Game of Thrones. And
I still say it's kind of tame though.
It is, but I mean that was probably the more explicit.
Yeah, it was the most explicit one out of
that we've seen.
Yeah, all of it. Anyway.
Which kind of had no bearing on this story whatsoever. They just put it in there. It was just.
Once again, it's ironic that we.
but anyways, we start off.
I'm sorry. It's just last thing. They definitely could have made the same point without the explicits.
Yes, for sure.
Like it didn't add anything to the plot line.
Hey man, you gotta get your ratings, you know.
Yeah, no, that's true. You know, you got a lot of pervs out there.
I suppose.
Gotta keep them interested, I guess. Anyways, we start this episode in the Riverlands. We get the Brackens and the Blackwoods sort of picking sides here between the blacks and the greens, which I believe is sort of a omen, if you will, of what's to happen. Because if you remember in the previous season, the Brackens and the Blackwoods fought for Rhaenyra's hand. If you remember, if she was going around looking for a husband.
Yeah.
And this idea that no one actually knows like why they don't get along.
Right.
They've forgotten why they don't get along. They just know that they don't like each other.
Yeah.
And so that sort of, and you know, they have this fight. I forget the actual name of the battle. I think it's actually called the Battle of the Burning Mill that they have there, and everyone dies there. There are no winners. All the participants in this battle fight, and I think that's sort of foreshadowing with sort of the overall theme of this episode. You know, with Rhaenys and her dialogue, and you know, the conversation at the end between Alicent and Rhaenyra's sort of desire to avoid war, and we ultimately see the inevitability of it. But there's that one scene between Rhaenys and Rhaenyra right after this, where you know Rhaenys is sort of reading her the riot act of like, was it you know Aemon's eye that starts it? You know, was it Luke dying? You know, you sort of forget like what started this whole thing, and before you know, you're just fighting. And
yeah, no, that's a
fighting
very
each other.
good point. I didn't think.
But what would you say started this whole thing? Because it started when
Yeah, this was
it
well
started-
before all of that.
it started when Viserys named Aegon as king, and Alicent mistook it.
Nah, it started before that.
I mean, that's
You
true.
can-
I mean, yeah.
I think
was a
that
catalyst,
was.
though.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was sort of the catalyst. That was sort of the jumping off point, but it's sort of that whole season one was sort of this tension building between Alicent and Rhaenyra, or Otto and Viserys, and that sort of split, you know, this family into two, and you know, by the end of season one, you know, they're not ready to go to war, well per se. It's not until, you know, Luke dies that you know that Rhaenyra's kind of like, I'm ready to, you know, go to war. But
And even then, not really.
yeah, not really.
I mean,
Even
this
in this episode, even in this episode, she's sort of hesitant about doing that. But I guess my question is for you two, when we see the opening of this, the opening of this episode with these two families not getting along, we don't know the reason, they end up dying. Do you see this as a foreshadowing of like, this is how this whole thing is going to end between these two families?
Yeah, for sure. That's all I got. And ain't it in history like it is that way?
It's interesting because, you know, now that you say, I honestly hadn't thought about it, but I also don't think when I watched it, I was in a good headspace when I watched it. So I think I missed a lot. Like even later, I'm sure we'll talk about it when the auntie is having a conversation with the husband.
What?
The
Rhaenys and Corlys, Lord
yes,
Corlys.
thank you. Teddy news. We're here. So I missed that. I don't even know what they talked about, to be honest. I think I wasn't right in the right headspace. But now that you say it, I'm like, oh, maybe I need to go back and rewatch the episode, because I'm like, of course there was a purpose that was more than, you know, Daemon just trying to seek alliances.
Yeah.
Because there's never anything that's not intentional for the most when it comes to the writing. So, but now that you say it, that actually makes a lot of sense, especially when they talk about like, oh, they don't even know anymore. Like it's just a thing. And I think you make a good point. It's like through the generations, it's like it might have started with Rhaenyra, with her tensions within her own family and the law that said that she couldn't be queen. And then everything else just kind of added on to that. So by the time Alicent and Rhaenyra's kids have kids, they know that the two houses don't get along, but they may not necessarily understand the history behind it.
All right.
Yeah, and we also see a little bit of that with Corlys. You know, when you talk about not wanting a woman to be heir, he still is sort of that mindset. In another scene that we get between Corlys and Rhaenys, where she's like, I don't know how this is all going to end.
Right.
You need to, switch heirs. You need to, think about it seriously. And he's like, well, let's just have another baby. He would much rather, try and have another son.
Risk her dying, by the way, because this time, like, pregnancy could get you killed during this time. So he's like, look, I'd rather you die than put a daughter up there, man. Even my own.
Yeah, he was like, I think it's not his daughter, right? It's his god. I mean, his
Who, Rhaena or
Rhaena. Isn't that his
yes, because that's Daemon's.
That's his granddaughter.
That's Daemon's daughter, right?
Yeah, it's Daemon's daughter, which would make Corlys her grandfather.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that's
sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah.
You know, the whole family tree is effed up, man.
I know, man.
So
I know. But I feel like in these episodes, man, we're doing a good job of making it clear who's related to who.
They're all related to each other.
I mean, essentially.
Essentially, yeah. But you got to make sense of it. You know what I'm saying?
I don't even, honestly, I get confused. I'm like, wait, how are you related again?
But that's what I'm saying. I think we're doing a great job of
I'm
keeping this shit straight.
Rhaenyra's husband is her uncle, and it's strange. Just all strange.
All right, we jumped ahead a little, but
we did jump ahead, but I just wanted to make that point as well. We get this scene with Alicent and Sir Criston and Aegon and the council there. Danny, you're already shaking your head.
well, I'm not gonna say what I thought because it's the next scene. But go ahead.
No, say it.
No, because the next scene when he cuts his hair, it was just like a knockoff Russell Crowe in the glasses. It was just funny.
Knockoff Russell Crowe.
I really wish we would have been able to see it too, like watch the because
the process of it.
Yeah, like shouldn't that? I feel like that's a significant moment.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like he just walked up, and I'm like, is this the same guy?
Maybe he had another shoot. Maybe he was filming something else, and he just came back with a short.
Or maybe they did shoot it and then they cut it.
Yeah,
out. Kind of like. Yeah, that's probably what happened. Also, I don't want to keep talking about sex, but no, the actress that plays Alicent, Olivia Cook, was talking about how she filmed an animalistic sex scene with with Sir Criston, and it got cut from.
Oh, see, I'd be pissed.
You would be pissed.
All that.
Yeah, so.
I mean, she probably didn't show anything.
No, that's not the point. The point is, as an actress.
All right, Danny, I don't know where you were going with that.
he clearly wants the porn.
No, I don't. I'm just saying, she probably did. From what we've seen, she hasn't shown anything, so I can't.
You're right. Yeah. You're probably right, but I think the point is that's sex scenes are very emotional, very intimate scenes.
Yeah,
and you gonna put me through all that, and you're not even gonna include it.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's very
be mad, especially if it's animalistic.
Yeah,
that sounds wild. She probably was feeling some type of way.
Well, they had to put the prosthetic boner in there. They had to get that scene.
It was probably one or the other. Probably like
right,
HBO was like, you got to make a decision.
Prosthetic boner or Olivia Green. And
I know,
sexy.
I know.
Prosthetic boner it is.
Yeah, exactly. We don't get the most ratings.
Anyway,
I'm sorry. All right. Back to King's Landing, between the council meeting with Aegon and Sir Criston and Alicent and all the constituents that are there.
Yep.
Sir Criston makes the decision that he's going to go with his troops to go to Harrenhal. And if you are a researcher or a book reader like myself, or like like Danny, who knows anything about Harrenhal, you know what a dump that place is and how haunted that place
I was like,
is.
okay, you can go to your death. Sure, that's fine.
Like, exactly. I think that's kind of like,
That's what they wanted, really. Yeah.
I think and that was going to be my question is like, do you think this is sort of Alicent's way of being like, all right, this is kind of almost like she's almost happy about potentially getting rid of a problem because she feels like, you know, the guilt of what she's doing is wrong.
No, I didn't get that.
No. I got that scene here. I got that sentiment from Alicent with Helena later on. She doesn't give a shit, yo.
She's very self-involved. Like she cares when it impacts her. When it starts to make her feel shameful or guilty, then she cares. But as long as she's exonerated from
she cared more about her guilt,
right,
with Kristen than she did the baby. Let's just keep it a bean.
I agree. I don't think she was bothered by it at all. I do. No, that's a lie. I do think it hurt her that the child got killed. But I don't think if she hadn't been doing what she was doing, I don't think it would bother her as much.
Yeah, Helena said, "Oh, I forgive you," and she was like, "Oh, thank God."
Right,
but she was just looking. Honestly, she was just looking for somebody to forgive her.
Yeah,
you know.
She's so selfish.
And it's not even. And the thing is that scene, it doesn't really truly make it clear what she is forgiving her for.
Yeah,
I don't know if she's actually forgiving her for.
That's true.
You know, having sex or forgiving her
That's
for
true.
like making her marry her. You know, her brother or have kids with him.
All the
things.
You know, like
I forgive you for all the things, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no, that's actually a very fair point because Helena is very cryptic, as we already know.
Yeah, and we'll talk about another character that also, you know, may have possessed some magical powers.
Magic.
But I was gonna say, I don't think Alicent cares what necessarily happens to Sir Kristen. I think she cares more about the optics behind it. Like, I don't necessarily think she has feelings towards him, like of love, or I care necessarily if he dies or not. I think she cares more about people finding out.
I do. I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree with that. I definitely don't think she sees him as anything more than something to sit on occasionally.
These
That's not any less crass.
It's not,
just
but
saying it. Anyway, go
I'm just not expecting it from her. I guess I don't like it's
I didn't even think I said anything that was bad.
Okay.
Anyway. But yes, I do. But I agree with that aspect. I do think she was a little perturbed because here he is at the table and she still can't get a word in. And I thought that was hilarious because she's dealing with the same issues she dealt with her dad is like, he was talking about, you know, gathering the troops and she made a comment. He didn't even care enough to look at her. He was just like, well, Prince Aegon or King Aegon, what do you say? And I'm like, oh, so disrespectful. You can't even look at her. I thought that
both these
funny.
queens have been disrespected in this.
that was going to be my next point. I briefly talked about it in the last episode of like the men are more impulsive characters in the show, whereas the women have the tendency to think logically.
Yeah.
And even though they may have emotional moments, they don't act on emotion.
Right.
They're often the smartest ones in the room in most of these scenes.
But they get a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and even in the end, even though and I know I'm jumping to the end, but even in the end scene between Alicent and Rhaenyra, they still try and sit down and have a conversation. It doesn't go anywhere, but they still try to have a conversation to try and prevent war. Whereas Aegon, Aemond, you name them, they just want to Jace. They all want to. They just want to go to war. They all want to hop on a dragon and go,
kill somebody.
Yeah, exactly. So, and which will probably end up being the downfall both of these families. Moving on to Harrenhal, Daemon also is arriving at Harrenhal here to see Sir Simon Strong. If you recall, Rhaenyra, well, she didn't marry him, but she has children by, I forget his first name. By Erwin Strong, and that's Harwin. Sorry, and the Clubfoot is, the culprit behind their deaths, and Sir Simon is, pretty much denounces him. Like he even calls him by Clubfoot in the scene. And also in the scene we have Daemon correcting Sir Strong when he calls him Prince, and he says, "No, I'm Your Grace."
Yeah.
Which is,
shut up, Daemon.
Right. He's still trying to prove something.
Which is very treasonous in and of itself, because we all know that Rhaenyra is queen and that he is prince / husband to her, and I think this just sort of further illustrates Daemon as still feeling that he should be the one on the throne.
Yeah, so I actually had a question about that because I was uncertain of his motivations, because I'm like, okay, is he actually going there to gain allies for Rhaenyra, or is he trying to gain allies for himself? I guess they're one and the same in this case. I guess in that moment I'm like, okay, is he trying to like plan to usurp the throne, or what's happening here?
I don't know if that's his intention, but he's moving in that way for sure.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I don't think, and we'll talk about it, coming up, I don't think that's in his motivation to try and usurp her. Just like I don't think it's in Aemon's nature to try and usurp Aegon, even though they have feelings that they should be rulers. I don't think it's in either one of their natures to try and turn on, in Aemon's case, his brother, and in either one of their cases to turn on their, family members and try and go for their throne. Also in Harrenhal, I thought it was funny just how, I don't think it was intentionally funny, but I did find it funny how Daemon arrived there thinking that he was going to show up and wreck shop.
Like
Thinking,
there.
like there's nobody there. Like, and that's like the whole point of Harrenhal. Like, if you know the history of Harrenhal, you know that everyone that's ever occupied it, for the most part, has died. It's not a very profitable place to be. You really can't man the castle because it's so big. It's falling apart because Aegon the Conqueror came with Balerion and burned it down. There's all these stories about ghosts being there, people burning the ash, and all this other crazy nonsense that's happening there. And I don't know. I would have to look it up and do some more research on there. But I don't know if Daemon actually knows what happened I know he knows what happened at Harrenhal, but I'm not sure if he actually pictured it in his mind that that's what it was going to look like, and then he shows up, it looks creepy, there's no one occupying there.
He should have had some kind of inkling, and I just think this is an overall representation of who Daemon is and how he operates, because you just come out with your sword extended without any rational thought, without he has a goal in mind, and he's going to achieve that goal even if it doesn't make sense. I just feel like that's an overall representation of how he moves.
Well,
like an idiot. He looks stupid.
I mean, basically. Yeah.
But I also thought it was, I too also thought it was funny that Sir Simon is just sitting there eating his food and just like, let me just bow down for you. I don't want any problems. I don't want any issues with you. What are you gonna do? It's just, I just thought it was funny, like how that whole situation like played out, even though they sort of built it up as like this suspenseful like moment. It was like, it was anything but by the time that whole scene played out there.
Right. He's just like, okay, you can
Even
have
with the
it.
Your Grace thing, he was looking like, what are you doing this for? Nobody's here.
Yeah, exactly.
Who am I to? I don't give a shit. For real. That's his whole vibe.
No, literally.
So I guess we'll talk about Daemon's sort of fever dream that he had there. Where
At the
he,
Werewood, yeah.
Yeah, where he walks in and he sees
A young Rhaenyra.
Millie Alcock.
Why are you pausing there?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pause there. I didn't mean to do that.
You accidentally paused.
Yeah, I did. Come on.
Anyway. both
So
both did
immature,
it,
man.
like,
Are you trying to make a joke here or what?
So anyways.
Yeah.
And he sees her sewing Jaehaerys's
head, yeah.
Yeah.
your words are just not wording today.
Yeah, I know. Well, because I don't have everything in front of me like I usually do.
What happened to your notes, man? Jesus.
Yeah, I typed them all up. I guess when I restarted my computer, I
Oh,
didn't
you
save
lost it. Just
Yeah.
like I'm about to lose all my shit. Anyway,
You're not.
anyway, go ahead.
So, so he walks in and he sees a young Rhaenyra sewing Jaehaerys's head back on his body, and she says, "I always have to take care of your mess or clean up after you." Something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I think this is like one of the first times that we see Daemon. I think this may be the only time that we've seen Daemon up to this point have remorse for his actions. I don't know if you saw it that way. I sort of have seen. I sort of see it as like the dream is a sort of representation of him having regret for what he did.
Yeah.
But also, and I saw online somewhere, but also him, how he sees Rhaenyra currently as like this still young version that he can sort of control and manipulate, but he can't do that anymore.
No.
Right, because and the fact that she says, "Here I am cleaning up your messes," that can't feel very good to
Right.
think, because I don't know if it's so much how she feels more than it is how he feels. Like,
Yeah.
this sounds it, but yes, I did in that moment. I was just like, "Oh, Daemon, you feeling guilty? Are you feeling a little pang on your heart?" So, but after you mentioned that Harrenhal is haunted, which I didn't know. I wonder if it's just the ghosts that kind of mess with, even if there's like a little bit of something there, which he can usually mask and ignore. Maybe it's pulling it out of him.
Well, yeah, I think that's exactly what that was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No.
What do you think?
So there was a woman there. If you remember,
Yeah.
at the end of that scene, there's a woman there. Her name is Alice Rivers, and she.
How do we know that?
I don't know. Did they say her name?
I don't remember them saying her name.
Okay. Well,
In this episode?
Yeah, in this episode.
Oh man, I must have missed that.
I don't
Because I
know.
thought she was just like a projection of.
No, she is not a projection. She is there.
She was there
there
because I
She was definitely
saw
there.
her when he first got there.
Oh, I must have missed that completely.
Yeah,
But
so
I don't remember them saying
her name.
name.
Her name is Alice Rivers, and in the books, she is a witch.
Okay. Got it.
So that's where
They said you're gonna die here.
Yeah, exactly. That's the woman that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So also could be more for foreshadowing. Also could be in reference to the fact that a lot of people have died there in Harrenhal. Like we said, it's haunted. So
Yeah.
And why does it have to even be meant to be literal?
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that's what you were getting at.
Well, no, it could be metaphorical too, because if you recall, we in season 1 of Game of Thrones.
No, I don't recall that.
Okay. Well. But remember Jaqen Haggard and Faceless Men and so when they're there and he's killing off everybody.
Yes.
And okay, so that, I mean that could be like,
Yeah, it can be the same thing.
and it could be seen as like a form of a ghost, like that's there, killing, killing people. So, so we then jump to, I think that covers everything, right? From Harrenhal.
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay.
I didn't get anything else from there.
Yeah. So we also have a scene between Sir Gerwin, who is Alicent's brother, and Sir Criston, which I found pretty interesting because Sir Gerwin sort of has his antennas up about Sir Criston, about like, oh, you've rose in the ranks pretty quick, for pretty much just a regular guy,
Yeah.
and so they track on to Harrenhal, which I believe the next episode, if you've seen some of the previews, okay, well, there's going to be a battle, and I think we're going to see.
Well, I got that much. I didn't see the preview either, but that you can tell that's what's
yeah, you can see that they're on a crass course to meet at Harrenhal.
Yeah.
So, but in between there, we get, was it Baela? Right? It's Baela, right?
No, yes, it was Baela. Yes.
Yeah, so all these names and all these damn characters you got to keep track of. So anyways, so we get Baela and Moondancer, who's out scouting, and they find, Sir
Criston and the crew.
and Gerwin, and the crew out just chilling, and she launches a full on dive after him. I thought it was one of the more intense scenes of this episode, considering there's very few.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really well done in terms of suspense and just sort of keeping and drawing in on your attention and everything.
Yeah, I thought the same. I wanted to make a point of what they were saying before that happened.
Do you want to talk about his haircut?
Once again, it's just why? It's like, why are they trying to piss me off every episode even more with this guy? Comes in with the gladiator, Russell Crowe,
what was the point of that?
freaking Roman Caesar haircut. I don't know. It just pisses. I hate looking at him now. So now I hate looking at him. I hate the character.
I was gonna say, did you really like looking at him before?
Yeah, well, now they're just making me mad now. I guess they weren't really talking about anything. They were just talking about I want to stay in the inn and da-da-da. He wants to bet a woman or something, whatever you're saying.
Right.
Anyway.
But but ultimately he ends up, I don't want to say pledging his loyalty, but he's
going to listen now. Yeah, that's what I wanted to make a point of, because he was giving him a hard time. He really wasn't trying to listen to this guy. But then he was like, I saved your life from that dragon attack.
Yeah. So
now you just do what I say, bitch. Okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly
essentially.
Yeah. That's
Now we move back to Dragonstone with Rhaenyra meeting with her council, and everyone.
I'm sorry. Did that scene with Rhaena happen before then too? Where she asked her.
Where she sent. Yeah, that was also in my notes that I don't have.
Well, did you have anything to say about that? Well, I think it's just funny how you're sending their daughters to go.
The thing is that she really sent. She was like, "Hey, go to the Vale, and while you're at it, go take my sons to Pentos and hide out there and raise them. Be
the mother I can't be for them. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's safe. Funny enough, those 4 eggs, and it's been confirmed now that those 4 eggs, 3 of them are Daenerys's eggs that she's gonna get.
Yeah.
So
if you remember,
I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that
because I was like, "There's no way within the 200 years of this series is that there's no way they have more than what's here, right?"
To be honest, I didn't really catch what was going on in that scene when she said, "Take my babies and raise them." I was like, "Your sons are grown." I was very lost in that moment.
But yeah, she was talking about Joffrey and Aegon. I know there's so many freaking Aegons, but yeah, those are her 2 babies. that she has. That she wants Rhaenyra to go and raise in Pentos, which is where Daenerys is going to end up
born.
Yep, and get those eggs. So
That makes sense.
I don't know what's going to happen or how, you know, those eggs are going to pass on, but you know, or even what's going to happen with the fourth egg that was there. But I also want to talk about Rhaenyra in the sense of she really doesn't want to do it, and it's just you can clearly see it written all over her face. Because don't forget that Pentos is a place that, you know, is where her mother died. It's also the place where she was supposed to get her dragon, but never did. She is riderless as well in the show. I think she's the only one on both sides of that's, you know, of Valerian or Targaryen descent that doesn't have a dragon. And I think she feels some type of way about that. And
She lays all this out, by the way. She says it right to her. She's like, yeah, and why should I do this? I have none of these things.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So I believe, you know, she's just doing it for duty, and, you know, the queen asked.
Yeah.
I know that she's against it, but it's kind of like when Tyrion sent Marcella away. Not the same exact thing, but it's one of those type of scenarios.
Yeah, same vein.
Yeah. So we shall see how that all plays out. Because I guess I don't know where they're going to go first. I guess they'll go to the Vale.
Yeah, I think they have to.
Because if you remember, Rhaenyra's mom is from the Vale, and so she wants to go there to get them on her side as well.
Yep.
So that's kind of like the gist of that scene. Also in Dragonstone, going on at the same time, we get the council meeting. Everyone there is pretty much telling Rhaenyra again to hop on these dragons.
Let's go.
And let's call some more. They even tell her to go away.
Run away.
And let us handle it.
She's
wild.
like, what? That's treason.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if they thought she was gonna like the plan. Like, they looked almost shocked that she was just like, no. Like, what do you mean no? Like, anyway, all the pressure. Just trying to get rid of another woman.
I mean, that's essentially what
essentially they view her as incapable of ruling. And even going back to the previous episode, they even questioned whether she had a hand in, I mean,
they slaying.
Not directly, but, you know, we found out, you know, she doesn't directly have a hand in it, but whether she directly had a hand in killing or murdering a child in the previous episode. So you have to wonder and question about the people that she's surrounded by and that are sort of giving her advice.
Yeah. Even one of them's like, we know how you get when you start getting mournful, man. Okay, take your ass somewhere.
And I feel like Daemon is necessary. He's needed. I don't trust him to rule a throne by himself. But his bloodthirst is kind of necessary, and partnered with Rhaenyra's rationale and patience and strategy, I feel like they could actually make a really good couple, but Daemon is too prideful. And with him by her side, being like, hey, like, you're going to listen, I don't think they would be so quick to challenge her the way they, like, your job is to give recommendations. That's fine. But I just feel like they're on the verge of, like, over-talking her at this point. They're all throwing things at her.
If he had the same energy that he had in Harrenhal, she wouldn't be going through this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, but yeah, so I feel like she's getting a lot of pressure. And I think at this point she does need to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of be strategic, but you also need to remind them who you are.
Yeah.
You might have to shed some blood.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that I think the best ally to Rhaenyra, ironically, is Rhaenys. I think Rhaenys, during this whole first episodes and even to the last season has been a constant voice in her ear, a constant voice of reasoning in her ear.
She's what
and
Daemon
in many ways,
to be.
yeah. But I guess in many ways, and it's just my opinion, and in many ways, she is more prepared to rule than Rhaenyra is currently. That's just, I don't know, that's a hot take.
No, I think that's a very good point, actually. That's a very good
agree.
point. And she was supposed to.
She was supposed to. She got passed over because, again, we live in that sort of society where, men ruling on the throne.
Yeah.
So it's even Rhaenys that sort of sparks the idea that she should try and communicate with Alicent to try and sort of make peace. And so Rhaenyra goes to the White Worm and is like, do you know how to get somebody, in the King's Landing into the Sept so I can go, speak with Alicent? And the White Worm is like, well, she basically says, you are a woman. No one is going to pay attention to you if you don't dress like you're a queen.
Highborn, yeah.
You're highborn. If you're not dressed in scathing clothing, if you don't, dress like a lady of the evening, you just dress like a commoner. No one's going to think twice about, seeing you as the queen.
I mean, is anybody going to really recognize her if they don't, see her close up? Unless you work in the
yeah, and I would even go out and guess to say that some people don't even know what she looks like.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
True.
I probably have never seen her. And by the way, the White Worm is her name is Viseria. But most people in this show, or well, I should say, Daemon kind of like refers to her as the White Worm, or
So where that name came from. Anyway.
I don't know. But I have to look that up.
I don't think I want to think about it. Anyway.
So
what is up with this old man laugh today?
I'm an old man now, man. I don't know.
You know what that reminds me of? You remember that old cartoon with the dog? And he would laugh with his teeth like that. And I can't even do it.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Anyways.
You're doing it.
I know.
So Rhaenyra, I don't know who helped her. Who's the guy that was with her?
I have no idea, actually. Somebody that works in the castle, I guess.
No, that's someone that works in the castle. There's obviously somebody that's in her, on her staff.
Right.
But
yeah, it didn't look like anybody from the council.
No, I think it was the sir. I think it was the guy from last episode who walked. When Eric and Eric were fighting.
Oh yeah.
And she tells one of the maids, "Hey, go get Sir. What's his name? I forget.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. All right. So I think it was him. And so she sneaks into the Sept to speak with Alicent to try and make peace. And clearly Rhaenyra did not think much of the idea because Alicent was ready to sink her.
Goes to show Alicent unchanged.
Yeah, well, she was ready to do it in season 1. Remember when Aemon lost his eye and she tried to go after? I think it was, I forget which kid it was, but she wanted an eye for an eye and was like, he used to be punished too. And she whipped out the knife and was ready to go. Like,
I forgot.
Alicent's like low key about that life a little bit,
I don't think it's very low key. I think she's just very self righteous.
Very high key.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry.
But
what did he say?
Sorry. Or, I'm not going to repeat it.
Okay.
So we have this conversation between the two of them, and you sort of see like this sort of back and forth, like, you want, like, how are they? I think the overarching question is, what was Rhaenyra expecting Alicent to say? Because in order for this whole conversation to actually work and for them to make peace, it would require Alicent to renounce Aegon as king, which she was never going to do. So I guess in many ways, in my mind, I felt like it was kind of a pointless journey, because I don't think rationale is something that Alicent sort of partakes in. And I just don't like everybody, because I
think she thinks
exactly. I mean, she thinks, but I think that she often thinks incorrectly, and I think that's evident. I think that's even more evident by the reveal that apparently she mixed up Aegon's. I mean, who would have thought? Like, she mixed up Aegon the Conqueror with her son Aegon. She thought that Viserys on his deathbed was talking about her son being the prince that was promised. It should be the one that was sitting the throne. And she realizes the mistake that she made, but she can't walk back. She can't admit it. It's too late. She is like, by the end of this, she is going to war, willing to go to war, knowing the mistake that she made. And this to me like makes her to.
But honestly, at this point, what could she do? What's she going to do? Go to Aegon and be like, my mistake. Actually, you're not the king. And then what's Aegon going to be like?
Otto told him as much already.
So. Well, yes, and he definitely wasn't going to listen to him, and he already doesn't listen to his mama. So,
I mean, yeah, that's true.
So I don't think, even if she did say, I think the best that could have come out of it was like, okay, let's try to develop a strategy together. But Alicent is too prideful herself. She's not going to sit there and be like, she was so fervent about, no, that's what he said. He changed his mind, only to be like, you said the Conqueror. Oh, and now it's like, well, it's too late, which is not true. At that point, it's like, what is she supposed to do?
It's like, all right, my bad, but
literally, my bad.
Exactly.
The deed is done.
I know nothing we could do much about it. You know, sorry, got to spill a little blood here.
Right, and it's like it's just a domino effect.
Yeah,
because it's like at this point, I felt like Alicent made a good point because Rhaenyra is like, what can we do? She's like, there's nothing that can be done. It's a snowball at this point.
The reason why nothing can be done,
but she's not going to do it. Yeah.
Well, one, she's not going to do it, but also think about who she would have to tell.
That's what I'm saying.
You made that point, but it's something that we've been talking about, not just in this episode, in the previous episode as well, about how the men are impulsive and the women have a tendency to be more logical in the show and how they present themselves. So her going to tell Aegon, or her going to tell anybody on that council, it wouldn't have changed anything. They wouldn't have reverted back. They wouldn't have been like, let's take Aegon off the throne and, put Rhaenyra there. It would require them to admit that they were wrong the entire time. And they're too prideful of people to go about it. They would much rather die believing in a lie than live, and I say live, in quotes, because I don't even know if they would live. I don't know. Rhaenyra doesn't strike me as a person that would want to kill her usurpers necessarily, but you know who would?
Yeah,
Daemon.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just feel like even if Alicent were to go and be like, hey, we were wrong, and they decided to surrender and say, Rhaenyra, we're going to bow to you, there would always be division and dissension at this point. Because even when they were living under the same household and the king was still alive, there was dissension and division. Like, it just toppled over. After the king died, there was nothing to keep it together. It was already falling apart. And at that point, after he died, it took literally one strand to be pulled because, like you said, Alicent doesn't think. Had she thought and been rational when the king was already loopy, she was like, wait a minute. let's talk about this rationally. Let's think about this. But she didn't. She's just like, I understand my king. No, you don't.
That's
Sit
true.
down.
I also, because if she had thought about it I think if she had thought about it rationally, she would have said, there's no way that Viserys would say, make Aegon the heir,
Right.
or make he should be the next, king.
Yeah.
I think logically it doesn't make sense. But I also think that Alicent and Otto were so committed to usurping Rhaenyra and casting her away to put Aegon there to begin with. Like, this is before Viserys was dying and that she found out incorrectly, Aegon's dream, that they were already committed to this plan of not having Rhaenyra on the throne. They were already fully committed. And I mean,
Otto told Viserys last season, like, oh yeah, marry Rhaenyra to Aegon over there when he was still like 2 months old and shit.
yeah.
I forgot. I don't remember that.
Yeah, he did that. It was like, are you stupid? Even I wouldn't do that, and I'm married to my sister. That's essentially, yeah.
And
obviously not, but you get the point.
And I forget, and again, names, I don't have the family tree in front of me, but if you remember, they were going to try to marry Viserys to Corlys's and Rhaenys daughter, who was like 12 years old.
Yeah.
So,
family has problems.
Yeah,
Anyway.
family has problems. But all this inbreeding and incest, that's how
No wonder these people are crazy.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question I have there is, I guess from a writing standpoint, because for me, even though I enjoyed the scene between Rhaenyra and Al, I don't think it made logical sense from a writing perspective. Like,
yeah,
for that to happen, because I think if logically speaking, I don't think Rhaenyra would come to the conclusion that having an in-person meeting and risking her life with Alicent
would change anything.
Would change anything. That's just the way I'm.
I agree. And the scene, it did actually fall flat for me, and it sucks because that was the ending scene.
Yeah.
So like that's like the first misstep of the season for sure. I don't know if it has like any terrible consequences going forward. I don't think it would. But you're absolutely right. Like it just didn't make sense. Like it's just a waste of a trip, like a waste of like dragon breath.
Well, I see it as,
but it was good dialogue.
I feel like it was her final attempt. I think this shows her desperation.
Oh yeah.
At this point, that's kind of how I took it. It's like if she's willing to go out her way to try and get Alicent by herself, clinging to the hope that this was my friend at some point. Maybe there's something we can salvage. Let's just have a conversation, because obviously she feels she can't have a conversation with her council because they're just yelling at her, telling her you need to run and we need to strike. And she's just like, I will take your suggestions into consideration. She's like, I need to talk to somebody who's going to be level-headed, someone who's more who she thinks is going to be rational, someone who she thinks is going to think about this the safety of the family. And avoiding unnecessary deaths, even though there have already been unnecessary deaths. So that's how I took it. It's like, this is her final grasp. And it also led her to understand that it was not that she was deliberately lying, but that she just actually thought that that's what the king said. But it was actually an accident.
I was gonna make that point too. It did serve in that purpose.
Yeah. So it changes. I think this might change Rhaenyra's perspective as well, because she's like, "Oh, you're not a liar. You're just stupid."
But I think it also gives Rhaenyra the sort of closure, I guess, that she needs on this type of friendship here. Yeah. That she can feel okay about trying to murder everybody. So.
Yeah, I think so.
And I could be mistaken, but she didn't bring up like the fact that, hey, I didn't send anybody to kill James.
No, she didn't. She didn't.
But I thought that was interesting that she didn't bring up that she didn't try to clear her name almost.
Yeah, or it could just be that, just from a writing perspective, that they probably forgot.
I don't think so. I don't
they
think
could have forgotten.
I don't think you can forget something like that. I mean,
Well,
I would hope not.
it's not like Alicent went into to talk about how her son killed her son first.
Because they did bring that up in the conversation.
Right. They did. It was mentioned. Why am I blanking? Because it was the conversation with Rhaenys, where Rhaenys was the one that was like,
She also
oh,
said
like,
that, like, oh, you said, yeah, which was crazy coming from her. Actually, I thought.
Well, we had talked about it in the previous episode that we had recorded. Don't forget to go check it out. Where we talked about, I know, a shameless plug about our own, but where we had talked about the fact that Rhaenyra is culpable in this, whether it's indirectly she's culpable, but when she walks into a room and says, I want Aemon, and you have Daemon there who's a loose cannon, you should know that he's going to take what you say and run with it. So she indirectly did have a hand in his and Jaehaerys' death.
She did, but I just feel like we keep forgetting that they both lost children. So it's like, it's not like it started with Jaehaerys' death. It didn't start there.
Oh yeah, no. It started with Luke's death. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I guess the point that I'm making is that in
But
that
even
conversation,
that,
like, why does she need to defend the fact that she didn't do it? Just as much as Alicent didn't kill Luke, but it was her son that did it, and it was still she's also culpable in that because they could never control that kid. I'm done.
I think Aemon, I don't know. I feel like he is more controlling in the sense that he can control his emotions more. But I think that in that instance where he killed Luke, he mentions in this season that he was angry and that he was sort of sorry that it happened. And he lost, and that's another thing too that we're going to find out in these upcoming episodes when we really get into it and we start seeing dragons and on dragons, fighting, that they do not have control over these animals. Like this is like sort of an illusion that people have to think that, that these Targaryens, with these dragons, they have control over them. They are unpredictable. You know what I mean? They're like flying tigers. I don't know. They can turn on you. I don't know. I don't know what trying to analogy.
It's almost
like
they're like flying dragons or something.
The point is, the point is that they're animals, right? So if you own dogs and you're getting into a fight with somebody and that person has a dog too, and y'all are angry and your dogs are feeling the anger, the likelihood is that if you attack and your dog attacks, the dog is going to return an attack, and they're not necessarily going to stop to not kill each other. Like, whereas we as humans can be like, okay, we can try maybe pull off one another. The dogs are already charged. And I think it's the same. It's like in the moment he was playing with him, but he could not control his dragon because the dragon was like, all right, I guess this is the enemy, so we're gonna take him out. Yeah. It's like, don't look down now like all surprised, like, oh shoot, I didn't know he was an animal. Sorry.
But it's just interesting how like these things that are happening are just based off of, I don't want to say miscommunication, but just like a series of unfortunate events that have like transpired, that if people had any wherewithal to just like sit down and have conversations, it sucks that a child died. It sucks that Aemon lost an eye, like going back to even the previous season, like these things, they kind of started with the children. Yeah. Having these sort of squabbles. Squabbles. And they sort of and now they've escalated to the point, where some of them are exactly. So true. I don't know. The other question I have is this the last time we see Rhaenyra and Alicent on camera together?
No.
Or share a scene together?
I think it's gonna be a long time. For sure. that they may or may not time travel through.
There might be a lot of bloodshed before they
Yeah,
end up
I
on the
definitely
same
think
screen.
so. For sure, we're at that time now. It's this episode was slow for a reason because we're about to ramp up.
And I didn't want to touch on that, but I kind of agree with that sentiment that it, because I haven't read the books, and book readers would know actually the answer to this question. But if we're, because I know they've actually changed a lot from what happens in the books. Like for an example, Rhaenyra is still alive in the show, but he actually dies in the books. So we have no idea what their plans are for Rhaenyra. I would imagine that he's going to come back at some point in time. Is he going to claim Sea Smoke, the dragon that was sort of flying off when the White Worm and Rhaenyra were sharing a scene? I don't know what type of role he's gonna have. So they're making changes, like just like in the book, like Rhaenyra and Alicent don't meet in the book. They send letters to each other as a last ditch effort. In the show, they actually meet in person. So I would imagine that even if it doesn't happen in the book, the writers will somehow make it happen before the end of the show happens, that those two are in a room together, because the series sort of starts and ends with their friendship.
Yes.
So, anyways, Danny, you talked about it this episode. I guess we'll get everyone's sort of overview of how you feel about this episode and how you rank it, and I guess what you think is gonna happen next episode.
Even though this was slow, and even though I didn't particularly, I liked the last scene dialogue wise, but I didn't like you said, I still think, even though there was a purpose to it, I still think it was kind of pointless too. Like, I still think there's just no way you thought that she would change her mind at all. Maybe, once again, maybe to Tamika's point, maybe she just needed that closure. So, which is fine. Definitely the weakest of all three so far, but still very strong. Next episode, I didn't see the preview of it, but once again, I know we're gonna have that battle in here though. And I think we're on a ride upwards for the rest of the season, honestly. So still strong effort, still like where the season's going.
I like the episode. Jerry said the same thing. He felt it was very slow. And I've been
he thought the last one was slow too. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I'm also getting that consensus from other people that it kind of like is slowing down compared to the first episode. I personally enjoy it. I think, like I said earlier in this evening, is that I think that there's intentionality behind everything. And I feel like you have to have it's in the details. And I feel like you have to iron out the details, because you definitely have a build of something, even between Aegon and Aemon, and the way he was kind of what's the word? I'm tired.
You're almost there.
He was just like what's the word?
I can't tell.
I don't know the word. I'm sorry. I don't know the word you're trying to use.
He was like bullying him anyway.
Okay.
But I think within both sides, there is division and a lot of tension rising up. And I think it's going to end up exploding, because you got issues between Alicent and Kristen and Aemon and Aegon versus everyone. And then on the other side, you got Rhaenyra versus Daemon versus everyone. I don't know where, what's her name? Rhaenys. I'm not really sure where she stands yet. So there's a lot of, while each side is battling each other, they got their own issues. They can't even handle what's going on in their own respective households. So I definitely think it's building towards something. I can't necessarily predict what's going to happen next. I think Rhaenyra may have some kind of resolve following the conversation with Alicent. I definitely think it's going to change her perspective. I think it's also going to change. It might take a turn for Alicent as well, because I just think her misinterpreting the king's final wishes is just an add-on to all the other issues she's been having and the guilt she already carries. And now she really carry guilt, thinking, because before it was like, Rhaenyra, you just need to accept that the king changed his mind. And now it's like, oh, shoot, I actually play a really important role as to why we are here, where we are. So, yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see how things unfold in the blood that will be shed and who's going to end up dying, because somebody's dying.
I think a key character is going to die next episode.
Daemon.
I don't think it's going to be Daemon.
Oh, I don't know.
I actually think it could be. I think it could be Kristen Cole, but that's.
I can't see it happening yet. I can see him getting badly injured and surviving.
Kind of like how Jamie got badly injured in this season.
Yep, exactly.
When the dragon was about to, burn him.
Yeah, not as illogical though, for sure. Not that bullshit.
Oh man,
I don't think it's gonna be that illogical. I'm gonna give him credit. At least they better not.
Okay, maybe not. Okay, over under 50% that a major character dies the next episode.
I would say 40.
60.
Tamika, 60? Okay. Overall, I think that I agree with Danny that this is the weakest of the episodes so far. It's arguably the most boring of the episodes. But I think
I didn't find it boring.
I didn't find it boring either.
I think one of the interesting things but episode 1, episode 2, there was a beginning, middle, and end. It told a complete story from act 1 all the way to act 3. There was a resolution or an arc in each of those 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So to speak. This episode doesn't really have that. And it sort of ends almost anticlimactically a little bit, in my opinion, which sort of knocks it down for me. And I feel like it was just an episode that was...
It was the building block, really.
It's a building block. I feel like it was just an episode of chess, of putting... or a game of, like, putting your pieces in place for... when shit really starts to pop off. Because it was about putting, Rhaenyra in Pintos. It was about putting Daemon and Sir Kristen in Harrenhal. It's about like trying to put these characters where they need to be so that when shit pops off, they're there. And it makes logical sense. Yeah. Unlike in, Game of Thrones where you can just fly and run to...
Yeah, well, to their credit, they didn't start doing that till like season 6. The end of season 6 too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need an episode like this. There's nothing wrong with it. It's unfortunate that because last week's episode was also this way, but the dialogue was really well written. So, like, you just had more to grasp to. This didn't quite have that, so it does make it weaker. But yeah, like I said, sometimes you just need these kind of stepping stone episodes, and hopefully it's like the last one of the season because they only have 8. So
I know that was another thing that I also was like, all right, guys, excuse me. I was like, all right, guys, you only got 8 of these.
Yeah.
All right, we're on episode 3. Hopefully this is the last one of these, man, because we only got,
Yeah,
a couple more.
5 more.
Yeah.
But like I said, it did have the sense of like it's gonna ramp up. I did get that feeling. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So that is going to do it for this week's episode.
Yeah, we're past curfew for Tamika here for sure.
Yeah, she's running on fumes. But we definitely we appreciate Tamika staying up.
Yeah, appreciate you.
and getting us in and
dealing with some lateness, dealing with some technical issues.
Let's just wrap it up.
Dealing with a 2-year-old.
Just wrap it up.
All right, come on.
All right. But until next week, film fans, see you.
See you next week.
Okay, bye.
Hot D action.
Ew.